Hello, Iris J here with Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I hope this video finds you doing well. I am going to talk about the North Node in Aries now. So this happened in July 18th. The nodes shifted into their new signs that we're working with for 18 months. The North Node shifted from Taurus into Aries. The South Node shifted from Scorpio into Libra. Now, on the one hand, the nodes are always in relationship to each other, okay? So what's going on with the North Node in Aries has everything to do with what's going on with the South Node there in Libra and vice versa. I will make another video talking about the South Node in Libra. I want to really focus on some themes that we can work with this North Node in Aries because it's important. They're important themes. I'm apologizing right away for the stuffiness, for coughing. I find myself in a health journey this summer that I am constantly reflecting on and actually finding golden nuggets of self-inquiry and beauty alongside the frustration that comes when we're sick. But actually it's a sickness that's turned into sudden severe allergies. The beauty of being sensitive beings that we are. And let's get into it. The North Node in Aries. So this isn't, as I said, it's an 18-month journey. Okay, so I'm looking at my dates here. I have some notes. July 2023 into January 2025. Now, the last time that we had the North Node in Aries, it was December 2004 to June 2006. So it is interesting and I think helpful to reflect back on that period. Again, it was the end of 2004 through to the middle of 2006, and to see if some themes come up, if some themes came up in things that are going on in your life now, energies that you're feeling, shifts in your life that you're making, to see if there's any parallels. There may be, there may not be. There probably are some. And what is this North Node asking of us? And I'm going to get into that. But first of all, what is the North Node when it's transiting? Now, the nodes are very important in astrology. I'm an evolutionary astrologer. They're very important in evolutionary astrology. They have a lot to do with, in our natal chart, our own soul's journey, what we're here to work on. When we're talking about, sorry, that's Nikita. When we're talking about the transiting nodes, this is where we, especially with the North Node, we often hear language of fate and destiny. The nodes are absolutely about the collective and individual alignment and journey and evolution of our souls in line with the co-creative presence of divine mystery. We all have different language. I've been using divine mystery, which is actually recent in my own spiritual language. Nikita has a lot of thoughts about that. A lot of folks would delete that, but I don't know. I love seeing animals, so I'm letting you have that close-up of her eyes as I talk about the divine mystery coming through Nikita's eyes. You know, for some, this is source energy. For some, it's God, goddess language. It is spirituality. It is the ineffable, that which cannot be described in our human language. And the nodes are all about that creative impulse of the universe and our own alignments and journeys with it. And so when we're talking about the transiting nodes, we're talking about the cycles of the collective evolution and growth and releasing of karma. That releasing is more looked to immediately in the South Node, but as I said, they're always related. And what's going on collectively and individually are always linked in the transiting nodes and in the transiting cycles, especially of those outer planets like Pluto. And so what's happening is that we're having a shift. We're having a shift. This is an 18-month cycle in which that North Node, which is helping us to come into what we want to embody, what we need to embody, in order to progress on our journeys, in order to come into more alignment, okay? I very much am someone that believes in the non-linear progression of our human journeys, in that it's not just about climbing a social ladder, it's not about fixing something, and there's so much beauty to be found when we're kind of opening up to interrelated timelines in our own seemingly one-dimensional timeline, and in timelines that we can open up if we want to go into quantum theory. And so when I say progression, I really mean alignments that we're on a soul level working toward, which when we use that word soul, this word is used so much in our culture, I think we kind of lose some of the depth and the heaviness of that word. The gravitational pull of that word is that it can't fully be expressed in our ordinary language. And so when we talk about soul alignment, we're not talking about, oh, I just got the job I want and now my life is fulfilled. Okay, we're talking about something so much more expansive than that. And allowing ourselves to get the job that we want and feeling fulfilled is absolutely probably part of that, but it's not the whole story. Okay, there's so many more dimensions and layers of that, of our soul and our soul's journey. And the North Node is all about that. So what is the North Node in Aries bringing us into a cycle with? Aries energy, it's the first sign of the zodiac. Aries energy is all about the self. It is when we have just taken a breath in this human body and we're not part of our biological mother's womb anymore, and we're not part of the spiritual mother's womb. We've popped out into this world as a being, and we're like discovering ourself as a being, who I am. Aries is all about our own self. Libra is about that self in relationship with others, and that's where the South Node is. So we always know that there's an anchor between me, who I'm discovering, and who I am in a relational way. But Aries as an archetype is all about the self. So the question that I am going with for the next 18 months is, who am I? This is a nodal shift that is bringing up the question, who am I? Who am I now? And who I am now, I'm making this video at the very beginning of August. Next summer, the answer to that question is probably going to be different. So this is, this is a video to really lay the seeds about the nodal shift that we want to come back to, that we want to reflect upon over and over again as our life is opening and closing, as we're entering into some frustrations, as we're entering into moments of grace and expansion. We're always shifting, we're always evolving, and the North Node in Aries is really inviting us into a new stage of discovering who we are. And this is really important because it's who I am now. It's a time to reflect. Given that we work with cycles in astrology, you could reflect back to what was going on at the end of 2004 into 2005 when this last shift was happening and think, who was I then and who was I about to become and what happened during that? If only that it gives you that kind of reference point to see how our sense of self changes. And now we're going through a transformation. The node is helping to pull us in to a higher dimension of who we are. Okay, so when we talk about the archetypes, there's all different ways that we can talk about the archetypes in astrology. A lot of people love to talk about the shadow of the archetypes. Like the shadow of Aries is that we get too focused on us and we forget about others. The shadow of Aries is that the impulses in us are so strong. We're talking about primal fire energy that we forget that another world exists, okay? A lot of people, there's a lot of memes about the selfishness of Aries, okay? Aries is supposed to be concerned with the self. And for those folks that struggle a bit to come in to thinking about the self, that tend towards some of that Virgo martyring, that tend towards some of the Libra peacekeeping for others, this is a transit that wants us to feel into who we are. Aries is about our primal needs. It is about our instincts. It is about our impulses, and it is about our fiery intuition. And it is about the power of all of that to accomplish things. Aries is about energy that goes out into the world. It is moving energy. It is, again, that fire. It initiates. And it doesn't really like to be told what to do. Okay, and that's where we get a lot of those things about Aries shadow. But I don't want to focus in the shadow because this is the North Node. The North Node is here asking us to come in to embody the higher octave of the sign, the more enlightened aspect of the sign in us. And this is something that's being supported by the universe, divine mystery, cosmic collective. So we get to reflect upon what that is for us. And where you have Aries in your chart is where this is going to show up. So you really want to look at where Aries is in your chart. We're beginning at the end. So we're right, as I'm making this, we're in the 28th degree of Aries. I have a video on the houses that I will drop the link below in case you want to refresh on what the meaning of that house is and how these themes are going to come up. But who am I? This is a question we're being asked for the next 18 months. Okay. And how am I being asked to realign myself with my impulses, with my intuition? Aries speaks in a fiery spirit that usually comes through the body. Okay, first it's fire, first it's spirit, it's impulse. That impulse then usually radiates into the body, and then from the body it goes into thought. So when we're dealing with Aries energy, we also have to become aware of the body. And if the body needs to move, it might need to move. And we have to do that respecting our own body's limits and needs, and what movement. For some people, movement looks like running. For others, it looks like a slow hatha yoga practice. For others, it's just gentle movements, you know. But the energy of Aries generally does need to move through the body. Aries energy, you know, I think with the North Node moving through Aries, there's also a lot of reclaiming. That's an opportunity. A lot of us, especially women, especially folks that have trauma in childhood, and especially when there's violence in the childhood, especially when we live at the intersections of collective oppressions, be that racism, sexism, homophobia, all of them, we know them, classism. We are taught to silence our impulses. We are taught to put out that fire. So what happens when we put out the fire of our primal needs? All things get dysregulated in the system. Mental health becomes an issue. Okay. This is where astrology brings in, and working with the elements offers additional lenses to something like traditional psychology, because sometimes actually what we need is to get back in touch with our impulses. Now, this doesn't mean that I have an impulse to scream at someone, so I scream at someone. This is not what the energy is. The energy is about us. It's actually not about other people. And this comes up also when we bring in the Libra aspect. This is about us. Us learning about our needs and our impulses and embodying them in a way that takes us into what I refer to with Aries as a sacred self. Because we are here to be a human being. If you're watching this, you're here to be a human being because you are a human being. And we're here to embody a sacred aspect of that. And Aries helps us get into that by relearning what our primal needs are, who we are now, what I need to do. So what is coming up for you right now? So yes, we're working with this for 18 months. The way that we have come into this transit is incredible because the nodes are square Pluto, meaning that especially as I'm making this, so for the first, let's say 2 months from July and August, the nodes are in a very tight square with Pluto, which means that sense of self, something is breaking down. And it's going to be breaking down for several months. The square, it really, you know, after August, it's not as tight, but we're still in a square with the North Node there and the South Node with Pluto into October. So for those 4 months, there is something in our sense of self that is breaking down. However that's manifesting, however that's coming through, it's going to come through for all of us in different ways because we're all different people. But the theme, and when we read the astrology, that's another reason why this is part of aligning us to a collective paradigm shift, which is what Pluto is all about. Pluto is moving from Capricorn into Aquarius. That paradigm shift only happens with individuals coming into their aligned self. And that's what is breaking down right now. A lot of folks are exhausted. A lot of folks are struggling. A lot of folks, you know, there's beauty happening and there's enjoyment, but there's also an underlying current of exhaustion in a lot of folks I talk to. And that is Pluto square the nodes. And this is soul deep. This is something that is so much more expansive than the dramas of our own life and even the dramas of the collective. Okay, even things like politics, and it's a matrix of meaning that is as vast as the universe that we're all tuning into in this moment in our lives here on Earth, this planet. And so that question of who I am, we don't need to answer it. Even if we answer it now, it's going to shift as we move through this transit. So I think it's good to say, like, who am I now versus who I was 5 years ago, and see what comes up. And we could do this next month, and we could just come into how it's changing, because most likely we're transforming into a new person. This is kind of what, you know, it depends where we have this, but there's elements of us that a new sense of self is birthing. And we're just in the beginning of that. Okay, we're just in the beginning of that. So we don't need to accomplish everything now. We don't need to like have the new self out in a month, because we're not supposed to, because Pluto's still breaking down the nodes in a month. And I think it's good to let the pressure off, but to take these questions and move with them and see what comes up. Again, look at the house where you have Aries and do a little reflection, a little art making on that question of who I am, however it comes up to you. And just remember that we're being called into a reclaiming and a realignment with our impulses, with the first fire that sparks life, that we get to celebrate, that we don't have to silence our intuition. We actually need to learn to be in relationship with it. And Aries can do that. And the reason Aries can do that is because the archetype of Aries never stops. It's always in the process of becoming. Okay, then we move on to Taurus and we keep moving and we get into different archetypes. But Aries as an archetype, it's always creating, it's always discovering, it's always in a process of answering who I am. For Aries archetype, that question can never fully be answered because it's always moving. The fire flame is always growing. And so we just get to keep cultivating that energy and that flame with us for the next 18 months. And I am at 18 minutes now, and YouTube tells me that that is much too long for a video. So I'm going to stop this, but there's a lot of information and a lot of reflection with the nodes. And I will make a node on the South Node in Libra later on. Be well. Sending my blessings. Take care.